We are back. You know, what's going on a day in and day out basis at this point should be a clear and present warning to every American about the danger that our nation is in. If you don't get it, if you don't realize it, if you don't understand it, I got to tell you, you must be sleeping. Because at this point in time, we are literally living under what I would declare to be a police state. And any argument to the contrary is just fodder, misinformation, disinformation. I'm going to give you an example. Obama met with 9 people from Congress the other day and to talk really about surveillance. They disinvited, not just not invited, but made sure that he didn't attend Rand Paul. Now, look, I'm no supporter of Rand Paul and everything that he does. I don't think anyone should be. But I can tell you this. Anytime you are sitting there handpicking the people who are going to attend these types of things, you know, especially a critic of the NSA and their work, then you've got to question the veracity of what their intentions are. Dianne Feinstein was there. Saxby Chambliss was there. Mike Rogers was there. Rupsberger from Maryland was there. Dick Durbin was there. And Sensenbrenner and Bob Goodlatte from Virginia, both GOP people, were there. The problem is that none of these GOPs or Republicans are actively working to protect you. And so he's meeting with a friendly audience to violate and break the law. And that and get their approval and their acquiescence. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a betrayal of everything that government and the separation of government and powers should stand for. You see, we are at a time when, for all intents and purposes, there is nothing that is going on right now in our nation that you can trust. They've approved and passed the opportunity for under the National Defense Authorization Act for legal use of propaganda against American citizens. They've authorized the detention indefinitely of American citizens, all under the NDAA. They have gotten approval through Congress for all of this surveillance that they're doing every single day. And that should tell you exactly how far Congress is willing to go to betray you and violate your rights as an American. This is a frightening change that's come over America. And I got to tell you, if you're not willing and understanding of how deep this rabbit hole goes, I'm not sure that there's any help or hope for you at this point. Because what we have is a situation completely run amok. You know, the IRS scandals were out there, and those people, that's never been resolved. The investigations are ongoing. And quite honestly, I am tired of hearing about investigations. I want special prosecutors provided who are going to actively find and work through these issues. I want prosecutors, not investigative congressmen, who have an axe to grind, just want camera FaceTime, want to sit out there and pontificate. These are people who are looking for press coverage, not truth. I don't want that, and you shouldn't either. What we need and what we absolutely must have is truth. And the only way to get at the truth is to be able to subpoena these guys and all of these people, these CIA agents who were at Benghazi. I got to tell you, if you've read the story about Benghazi, many of these individuals, here's the frightening part about this. These guys are openly stating that they are receiving, and hear this out now because this is scary. They are having polygraph tests done to them, sometimes once a month. And what they're asking them is, have you been talking to Congress And have you been talking to the press? Ladies and gentlemen, that is absolute intimidation, coercion. Here, they are threatening them if they leak information with the end of their career, and even worse. One of these individuals who discussed this with CNN said, "You don't jeopardize yourself. You jeopardize your family as well." Now, if this sounds to you like an administration that's operating within the rule of law, I invite you to go back and look at your Constitution. I invite you to go back and read the Declaration of Independence. Please do so. Here's what another one said. "You have no idea the amount of pressure being brought to bear on anyone who has knowledge of this operation." The CIA responded to CNN's questions to them, and their claim was that they enable all officers involved the opportunity to meet with Congress. There were as many as 35 other Americans who were in Benghazi that night. And CNN is citing anonymous sources, of course, because they can't spill the beans on who these people are. They're already in danger, right? And 7 of them were wounded, and 21 Americans were working in the building, which was later referred to as the Annex. Now, we know that a bunch of them were killed at the Annex, but who had any idea that actually the total number of them available was in the number of in the area of 21? No one. So, Frank Wolf, a Republican from Virginia, comes out and says this is a form of cover-up. We should have the people who were on the scene come in, testify under oath, do it publicly, and lay it out. But there really isn't any national security issue involved in this, or with regards to that, he said. So here's what you need to know. They are covering, and I want you to hear this interview because it is so startling when you understand the depth of where this thing has gone, when you realize how far down the rabbit hole that this thing has taken us. You are going to be absolutely stunned about the true nature of where this thing is really headed. Because what we have now is a complete and total dissolution of the rule of law. And I got to tell you, to me, that is the height of hubris and treason. It's treason because these people think they have the right to bar you from getting access or hearing from these individuals who were actually there because they're covering up their ass. And here's what the real deal is. They are desperate to cover up the fact that this was a weapons transfer project that ran amok and went awry. So I want you to listen to this. It's about 5 minutes, but it's worth listening to. We've got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to spend 5 on this because I think it's very, very important for you to understand the depth of where this thing goes. Hang on a second.
CNN has learned the CIA is involved in what one source calls an unprecedented attempt to keep the spy agency's Benghazi secrets from ever leaking out. Since January, some CIA operatives involved in the agency's missions in Libya have been subjected to frequent, even monthly, polygraph examinations, according to a source with deep inside knowledge of the agency's working. The goal of the questioning, according to sources, is to find out if anyone is talking to the media or Congress. It's being described as pure intimidation with the threat that any unauthorized CIA employee who leaks information could face the end of his or her career. In exclusive communications obtained by CNN, one insider writes, "You don't jeopardize yourself, you jeopardize your family as well." Another says, "You have no idea the amount of pressure being brought to bear on anyone with knowledge of this operation."
Agency employees typically are polygraphed every 3 to 4 years, never more than that.
The rate of this kind of polygraphing is rare, according to former CIA operatives, including Robert Baer, now a national security analyst for CNN.
If somebody is being polygraphed every month or every 2 months, it's called an issue polygraph. and that means that the polygraph division suspects something, or they're looking for something, or they're on a fishing expedition. But it's absolutely not routine at all to be polygraphed monthly or bi-monthly or whatever.
In a statement from CIA Public Affairs Director Dean Boyd, the agency asserted it's being open with Congress. The CIA has worked closely with its oversight committees to provide them with an extraordinary amount of information related to the attack on U.S. facilities in Benghazi, the statement reads. CIA employees are always free to speak to Congress if they want, and that the CIA enabled all officers involved in Benghazi the opportunity to meet with Congress. We are not aware of any CIA employee who has experienced retaliation, including any non-routine security procedures, or who has been prevented from sharing a concern with Congress about the Benghazi incident. Among the many secrets still yet to be told about the Benghazi mission is just how many Americans were there. The night Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 others were killed. CNN has now learned that number was 35, with as many as 7 wounded, some seriously. While it's still not known how many of them were CIA, a source tells CNN 21 Americans were working in the building known as the Annex, believed to be run by the agency. The lack of information and pressure to silence CIA operatives is disturbing to Congressman Frank Wolf, whose district includes CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia.
What do you think is going on here? Is this an elaborate attempt to cover this whole thing up and push it under the rug?
I think it is a form of a cover-up, and I think there is an attempt to push it under the rug, and I think the American people feel the same way. We should have the people who are on the scene come in, testify under oath, do it publicly, and lay it out. And there really isn't any national security issue involved with regard to that.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia.
Wolf has repeatedly gone to the House floor asking for a select House committee be set up, involving several Intelligence Committee investigators assigned to get to the bottom of the failures that took place in Benghazi. More than 150 fellow Republican congressmen have signed his request, and just this week, 8 Republicans, including senators and members of Congress, sent a letter to the new head of the FBI asking he brief Congress within 30 days. But no Democrats have signed on. In the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, Wolf says he was contacted by people closely tied with CIA operatives and contractors who wanted to talk. Then suddenly, he says, there was silence.
Initially, they were not afraid to come forward. They wanted the opportunity, and they wanted to be subpoenaed. Because if you're subpoenaed, it sort of protects you. You are forced to come before Congress. Now that's all changed.
And Drew Griffin joins us now. Drew, as you know, that's not all.
I got to tell you, when you hear someone sit there and tell you that these guys want to be subpoenaed so that they have the freedom to speak legitimately and have the protection that's afforded by a subpoena, because then they can say, hey, I'm not going to sit there and lie under oath, and Congress won't subpoena them, that tells me the fix is in. And it ought to tell you that what's really going on here is that they have no intention of truly opening the books on this. And the reason they don't is very simple. If they open the books on this, and it turns out that this thing was really a guns deal, a firearms deal, a weaponry deal to support the rebels in Syria without congressional approval, without financial approval, without American public approval, this thing will make the old Reagan scandals look Iran-Contra scandals look like a walk in the park, and it will definitely lead back to the White House, and they know it. You see, look at it this way. There is no way that a deal like that could have gone down without, one, Hillary Clinton's knowledge and input, because she was the head of the Department of State. Furthermore, to make matters even worse, there is absolutely no way on this earth that could have happened without the president's knowledge, input, and approval. And I got to tell you something. That tells you everything you need to know, because that, ladies and gentlemen, is an impeachable offense. You see, they are desperate to keep the truth under wraps because if they allow that truth out, if they allow word out that they were doing a weapons deal over in Benghazi and that Americans were killed as a result of it, it's criminal, not civil, criminal. And Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are up to their elbows in this scandal. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Congress is really not trying to get to the bottom of this. If they really wanted to get to the bottom of this, they would have done what? They would have subpoenaed these people who want to speak out. Now, I grant you, according to Gowdy, I mean, look, for them to go to the extent and to the outrage of changing Americans' identities to keep Congress from finding out who they are and where they are is unconscionable. That in and of itself is criminal. And I'm telling you right now, Americans need to rise up on a massive scale and tell your senators and your representatives that this is not acceptable. And if they refuse to actually prosecute this thing the proper way, by forcing these people to have a prosecutor who will actually handle this project, if they refuse to do that, then we need to hold citizen grand juries that will find these people in violation of the law and take the appropriate legal action to put them out. Because this, ladies and gentlemen, is open treason. Treason is defined as violating your oath of office and or betraying your country. And if you are going to sit here and lie to Congress willfully, knowingly, with malice aforethought, you're done. You are finished. And I got to tell you, that's exactly where this is at. They have been lying all along. They don't want these CIA operatives and anyone from the Department of State testifying other than high-level people who can say, I didn't know nothing. I know nothing. But if they actually ever get anybody who was truly on the ground there and they get them under oath and these people are given the immunity that's necessary in order for them to be able to testify legally and properly, this thing is going to get blown wide open. And it's not a phony scandal as this usurper would have you believe. There's nothing phony about this. First of all, it's not phony because 4 Americans are dead. Irrespective of anything else, that tells you exactly how this administration views you as an American citizen. In other words, you're here to be buffaloed and kept blind as long as you keep buying, paying taxes, and working so that they can squander your money. That's all you're here for. Keep the commerce going so that the taxes roll, the commerce rolls, money's out there. That's all they care about. Everything else is, as far as they're concerned, none of your business. You're a peasant, and you have no right to know. I'm going to tell you, this is the #1 scandal in America today. And anyone who is unwilling to recognize or acknowledge that is fooling themselves. The real truth here is that this scandal is by far the worst scandal that has probably occurred in the last 40 years. And the cover-up that's going on here makes what happened with Nixon and makes what happened with Ronald Reagan look like Cub Scouts. I mean, really, you're talking about going to the depth where they're actually changing the names of individuals and polygraphing them on a month-to-month basis to say, we need to know, have you spoken to Congress? Have you talked to the press? You realize that that would be a violation of your non-disclosure agreement. Hey, wait a second. Let me tell you something. This isn't about non-disclosure agreements. You realize that what we're talking about here is the nation of America, the United States of America. You have a sovereign and moral and ethical and fiduciary responsibility to tell the truth. To tell the truth every single day. To tell what you know. And I got to tell you, You see, this goes back to my earlier point that I talked about in the first segment, where they're trying to quantify or limit what they define as a journalist. And the reason for that is real simple. If they can limit journalism down to the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda, then these guys wouldn't even have an alternative of where to go to try to spill. Because you're not a journalist. I'm not a journalist. We're not full-time. We're not paid. We're not hired by one of the Ministry of Propaganda's organized media outlets. And that's really what it is. See, we are at such a time in our national discussion, shall we say, that at this point in time, we are so far outside the scope of operating within the constitutional framework of our nation. I'm not sure that anything at this particular time can save our nation. I actually believe that we are what we would classify as beyond salvage. That is the truth. We are beyond salvage as a nation. The only thing that we can do is we can put in place the appropriate means and the method to capture the information that we need to prove exactly how far outside the constitutional boundaries this nation has gone. As, when, and if we have that information, then Americans have every right, every reason, without fear of retaliation, to march upon this government and say, if you retain power, we will not leave until you do. If you think that you can stay here and you can continue to abuse us and misuse us, if you can continue to usurp authority unlawfully, then we are finished with you and you must leave office. And if you don't leave office, we will not leave here until you do. The country will come to a screeching economic halt. Our job, our goal, is to starve the beast and demand that they leave. Take our country back under a constitutional Republican format and recreate the wheel here. Because we already have the framework, we have the foundation, we already know exactly what we need to do to put our country back on track. What we don't have is, one, the will of the vast majority of Americans. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will come when Americans recognize how deeply treasonous Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and their entire organization have become. We're going to wrap our show. I want to remind you to come and visit us at americasvoicenow.org. Please find us on Facebook, where you can capture every program that we do. And also, we post up news stories and articles and all kinds of information up there every day. The address for that is facebook.com/America's Voice Now. And then you can capture this and every other program that we do at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. We will continue to post up our programs on YouTube. I am working on 2 issues, including one being a radio program that you should know about. And I'm also looking to, I'll give you more information as we move forward on that, but I'm also working on another project as well, which is a kind of a studio project where we will be able to provide an opportunity for actual video streaming on a full-time basis on our own dedicated channel. And so please join with us as we move forward. I know that those of you who are looking for us on terrestrial radio are very unhappy and disappointed. I am resolving that problem. I'm working on it as rapidly as I can, and I think I'm pretty close to a solution. We'll be working on that over the course of the weekend, and we will also be working on the studio issues. So stick with us. Thanks very much. Have a great day. We will be joining you again on Monday. As you know, our Saturday show is done, and thank you very much for being with us. You're listening to America's Voice Now.